Again, requirements, as I mentioned before, we used to have requirements like going into thousands of pages, hundreds and thousands of pages, functional requirements document, software requirement specification, SRS, FRS, functional requirement specification, MRD, market requirements document, BRD, business requirements document, SS, supplementary specification, all these huge set of requirements documents running into hundreds and thousands of pages. Now, we're still working on the requirement, we call it as backlog. So the backlog is actually kind of a placeholder, a repository for all types of requirements, whether it is a technical requirement, customer requirement, user requirement, software requirement, or whether it is a task that has to be done, the change, defect, everything goes into the backlog nowadays with Agile. But still, you're doing the same concept of requirement. You're collecting all the requirements in one place, right? Like how we did before. But with Agile, you're doing it in a slightly different manner, in a more efficient manner, quicker, easier, and more accessible for everyone. And there's a concept of definition of done with Agile. We're going to discuss that in detail the next week. But definition of done is basically something like, how can you say when you actually completed a task, when you finished a particular sprint, what is a success factor? How can you say this is just thumbs up? How can you give a thumbs up saying, well done, good job, this is done? So for that is called a DOD, definition of done. And you decide that much before the sprint actually begins. So I've got 3 weeks to complete the shopping cart, for example, in the example we use for the e-commerce website for selling mobile accessories. In that example, if you want to say that the sprint is successful, what would constitute success there? So there you define, even before you start off the sprint, you actually set the kind of guideline saying that I would have, for example, a shopping cart. I should be able to select the items, and then when I click on add to cart, it should work. It should actually add to the cart, and then when I go to the database table, I should see what are the items that the user has added to the cart. So that's a definition of done for that sprint, not for the whole project. So for each sprint, you need to have a definition of done. And then you can use personas and user profiles. We'll talk about it again in greater detail later. So we're using a lot of these techniques and tools to help us connect with the users better, to connect with the customers, with the actual users in a much better way, in an easier way than what we were doing in Waterfall. Again, personas and user profiles are a way to characterize the users. So as we discussed, it's all user-centered design, right? User-centered development, the Agile one. So it's all about connecting with the user, knowing them better. And user stories are a fantastic tool to actually define the requirements itself. So we discussed that yesterday, that it's the way that you write the requirement is from the perspective of the user. As a customer, I would like to select an item and click on add so that I can add that to the cart. So that's how a user story is written. So it's as simple as that one-liner, and you should be able to invest in the user story. As in, a user story should be independent, it should be negotiable, it should be verifiable, it should be sizable, it should be estimatable, it should be testable, invest. So that's a good story. So we'll talk about all of these invest principles and everything later. And then you map these different user stories, you come up with a journey of user story, a user story map. So you actually kind of take the user through the journey. How does the user come to a website? And then how do they find the items? How do they add the items? How do they kind of check out the item? Once the items are checked out, how do they give the payment information, the billing information? And then once that is done, how do they kind of confirm that this is the order? They view the order, they confirm it. So all of this is a journey, right? So this is how we're using Amazon, eBay, and pretty much every other online website nowadays. So you have that journey that we're taking that actually kind of completes the experience of the users. So this again is a technique. We'll discuss that in the coming weeks. And then story splitting, story elaboration. Again, you need to see how big a story is. So we were talking about shopping cart itself as a story to start with, but then you think that, oh, no, there are so many different things within a shopping cart. So you think that it should be actually broken further down into the ability to actually show the image of the item. And then you click on that, it should expand and then show the full image and then give the 360-degree view. Then it should also give you the item description, item title, the reviews of that item, and then perhaps it should also give you the other items associated with that. All of these, we're talking about all these big, world of things that you can do around the items and shopping cart. So you're actually trying to split and then divide and break these huge complexity, the monster, into independent small little things, and then you can work on these separately, the developer.